that, collectively what we can work on is our own anger management, our own rage management. Because Pluto is actually more than just anger. It's not like the Mars and Aries anger that we just went through for the last 6 months of that short fuse, burn through it anger. But it's more about that Pluto is that volcanic, deep, seething, things that have been buried, things that have been brewing, poisons that have been collected and accumulating at the deepest level, deepest layers of our psyche and our collective psyche, all about to emerge, all coming to the surface, all being churned up to the surface. So what does that mean for us? Like, how do we manage this time, right? How do we really stay grounded and hold our center when we're feeling all of this poison in the atmosphere and this threat? Like, how do we deal with this kind of ongoing sense of a threat? What keeps coming to me is the sense of like a loaded gun, collectively, I think we all feel like there's a loaded gun being pointed at our sense of sanity, security, and we don't know what to believe. We don't know what is reasonable at this point, because we're being fed so many different viewpoints, right? So how do we then come back to our own truth, our own center, and really also make space and expression for the feelings that are coming up? Because we may also be feeling triggered. We may be feeling angry, scared, anxious, probably a mix of all those things, right? It's definitely like a feeling of being on the edge. And what I would recommend is to look at your own history. Now, we're always looking at our own history with anger, but the different elements that can cause anger, I think are up for us right now. Like, there's anger that's caused from wounds in the past, obviously. There's anger that is caused by suppressed feelings, which become depression, actually, like internalized anger. And there's projected anger, when we're not in touch with some elements of our shadow that we then project and think we're seeing it out there because we haven't dealt with whatever's going on in there. So we see it as the enemy out there. So that's why Jung really emphasized shadow work so much, so that we don't keep projecting all of our own unprocessed stuff onto another person or a group or a situation, or even an ideology or another country, whatever it is. So Pluto is the deep work of looking at, especially in Capricorn. So since this new moon is in Capricorn and Pluto is still there, the last remaining planet until 2024 of the outer planets. This ongoing work with what I've been calling the devil's work, the devil archetype in the tarot. And the devil is all about confronting our fear, guilt, and shame. So looking at where we may still be harboring any fear, guilt, or shame. Absence of love, power complex. The power complex is the absence of love. So how do we delve into our own power complex, where we have felt somebody has leveraged power over us, how we've responded to that, how we try to hold power over someone else, how we deal with our own sense of powerlessness. Do we go tit for tat, or do we do the deeper work of trying to come back to love and come back to putting ourselves in the shoes of the other? Because when people are angry, they're suffering. All spiritual teachings, whether it's the Course in Miracles or the Bhagavad Gita, teach us that if somebody's angry, somebody's attacking, it's a cry for love, it's a cry for help, it's a measure of suffering. So to not take it personally and to not react. And one of the things my Guru Amma has been teaching us over and over and over again is to create more of a gap. And I've talked about this in some of my other videos, more of a space. And the more space you can have, the less likely you are to be reactive and to do something you'll regret. And you're also not just fusing or getting enmeshed with that other person's energy and just, getting into the mud, so to speak. One of the stories one of the really sweet stories that Alma tells about like how dangerous anger is, like the short fused anger. A story she tells a lot is about, this is heartbreaking, this will definitely make you think twice about letting yourself blow a fuse, and think to never underestimate how powerful and harmful anger can be. She tells the story of this father who was, washing and polishing his car, and his little boy started scratching and denting into the car. And the father freaks out and smashes the boy's fingers, breaks them, and then they're in the hospital. He has to rush him off to the hospital. And then the little boy's there with the bandage around his hand, and the father says, the father's obviously feeling horrible, and the little boy says, Daddy, when am I going to be able to play the piano again? And the father is especially heartbroken when he gets back and sees that the boy had engraved into the car, "I love you," his little son. So scratch in the car, broken fingers, it's just the damage that anger can do. And so I feel that this new moon is really asking us to go deep into whatever shame, because shame can definitely be a strong instigator, internal shadow instigator of anger. If we're holding shame, or we were shamed as children, that whenever we feel criticized, even in the slightest, we're going to attack back. We're going to attack even harder. We might even preemptively strike when an attack hasn't even happened, because we fear shame. We fear being shamed, or we are holding so much shame that our worst fear is that someone is going to shame us or diminish us or belittle us or criticize us. So that anger can lash out very quickly in the form of even a preemptive strike. So to look at the shame, to look at guilt, to look at fear, because these are big instigators of anger. And then just perhaps doing some inventory on how our angry outbursts or our lack of self-control over anger has harmed others. Oh, there's my speaking of. Someone who's angry, somebody wants his food. Even though he already had a snack. I might have to go in a second to feed my little Crow-Chi goat. He always has to make an appearance in all the videos. But anyway, to just use this new moon to really reflect on the transformational powers of Pluto and with anger. And the reason I'm talking so much about anger is because as Mars gets closer to that square with Jupiter, it's going to amplify it. And as he gets closer to that conjunction with Uranus, he's also been with Black Moon Lilith. We already had that conjunction. That's also the darker, the fierce form of the divine feminine that will not be silenced. So she's going to help us work through some of our anger. She's going to help us make it conscious. But we don't want to take it down on someone else. One of the teachings that Amma always says too is like, don't, it's not about hating other people. It's about, if you're going to get angry with anyone, anything, don't even get angry with behavior. She says, just get angry with anger. Don't hate on another person, and don't even hate on their behavior, but just get angry with anger. So anyway, I hope that this is helpful, and to just think about where in your life you want to go deeper into transformation now over the next lunar cycle. It's setting it up. Also with Capricorn, it can be about discipline. It can be about looking at the structure of your life and what needs to be transformed. And let's keep talking about our relationship to anger. I'm going to do a longer write-up on this and about, especially around shame-based anger. I'm really been thinking a lot about this recently, since Capricorn is the archetype of shame, fear, and guilt. And since we've been working on this since last year with that Saturn-Pluto conjunction, I thought this is a good time to revisit it on this new moon, to process it. And Venus is hanging out there in Capricorn. she's also going to go through all of that. You know, she's going to help us bring it into our relationships, all of those deeper teachings that we've had over the last couple years. So Venus is the last of the personal planets to go through Capricorn since Saturn and Jupiter have left Capricorn. So Venus is going to help us process it, hopefully in a sweeter way, hopefully bringing some sweetness into the mix and reminding us that the medicine for almost everything, including anger, is for everything, is love. So that's our Venus gift. All right, thank you so much for watching.